So I wanted to talk to you guys about the word of the week strategy that comes down the pike. Last week we talked about woke, remember? Which is so 2018. And they were like, the woke mob, and the woke mob is coming for you, and wokeness. And then they realized that the word had only reached them by the time it was effectively dead and nobody really uses it anymore. And certainly no one on the side they consider woke. You know what I mean? Like, there is no one running around going, you better get woke, you know, especially in big white liberal spheres, which is who they view as the supporters behind AOC and the like that got her in office. No, nobody is flailing the word woke around like that, right? But that was the word of the week, and it was all wokety wokeness. Now it's equity. So Tucker Carlson, equity is racism. Now, the Biden administration chose to use the word equity instead of equality because equity was based on everybody getting a chance at the starting line. Equality would be everybody's results are the same. That was how equality was being beaten down as a word. In the same way that liberal was a word that got beat up a lot, and then people moved to progressive because it sounded like a Star Trek liberal. Like, yeah, basically liberal, but in the future we'll all have replicators that make our food, and we'll all wear the same uniform, and nobody has cash anymore, and it's kind of we'll all live on a spaceship. And we all like each other, and we all wear the same clothes, so nobody gets mad. And so the same thing is true of equality. Equality got beat up as this idea that what they want is everybody to be equal. And the way they're going to get everybody equal is not to raise people up, but to beat people down. And so that's when you hear all the, like, they want to destroy people for being successful, and they want to take away all their money. And this is all about, like, just redistribution of wealth, all that stuff that you hear. That all that languaging is around equality. Using the word equality is a bad word, saying that equality is not about bringing people up, it's about bringing other people down, right? So, and when you talk about, when our DemSoc friends talk about equality, a lot of times that's actually what they mean. The difference, though, is that the vast majority of people use equality like everybody else, which is treat everyone equally, and they will flourish or fail on their own. So that's hence the word equity. Equity is, well, we've all got the same baseline rights and protections in the country, and the justice system and the laws and the circumstance of America should apply equally to everybody because no child is responsible for being born to a poor parent. And there's a baseline that we can help create for all of our citizens where everybody gets a fair shot at this, and you don't win because you win because you're better at something or you're more, driven, not because the person you're competing against was denied food up until they got into grade school and therefore had a slower development and can't compete with you because they have learning deficits because of it. That's the difference, right? So equity being like, we have the ability as Americans to make sure that, like postnatal care and even prenatal care and school lunches and all that kind of stuff, so that every kid, even beyond the circumstance created by their parents, has a good starting line, and that everybody, regardless of their race or their sexual orientation or any other qualification that would excise them from society in some way or marginalize them, does not anymore, at least in terms of the legal system, their ability to buy a house, their ability to save money, their credit score, their all those elements, their ability to accumulate wealth over time. Equity is about bringing those people up. It is, equality would be like the evil version of trickle down, equity being a rising tide lifts all boats, right? So this is the use of this word and why the Biden administration chose to use it instead of equality. And at this point, it's become a hard talking point for the right wing, because if you'll see, we've seen this a few times. They're trying to flip this on its head. Equity versus equality explained how this Marxist ideology could ruin us. And they used to argue that equality was the Marxist thing, right? This is, where is it? It's the different one. Hold on. Oh, God. That's just sad. Okay, so we'll dump back to this one real quick, and I'll show you what I mean. Like, while they scramble to make equity mean what they used to make equality mean, and then it's still the same complaint.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight.
By the way, I apologize ahead of time because even though I have kind of themed this out, and I haven't pre-watched the video or any of them for that matter, I'm just going on the titles and their descriptions of what they allege are in this. I can't, even though I'm trying to keep a theme going to some degree at parts of the show where I keep the ideas, so we can kind of examine something. When it comes to Tucker Carlson, his opening monologues are such word salad that I can't bet on the fact that he'll stick to the topic.
For months now, privately, we've been searching for a meaningful definition of the word equity.
I gave one. It's the starting line argument.
We've consulted linguists. We've dusted off moldering reference books. We've scoured.
Moldering. You couldn't find any that were scullying?
The four corners of
moldering. Moldering.
God's own internet, all in an effort to figure out what equity is. We've done this.
Can you picture Tucker Carlson doing anything other than just scowling at his computer screen while tapping away with two fingers? I can't find.
It's not for pleasure. We have hobbies, but because we feel.
What are your hobbies, Tucker? I understand you like wood. I don't know where I like wood went. That's so sad. I have to find that one again. I've got it somewhere.
It's our duty as a news program. Equity is now the organizing principle of the United States of America.
No, it is not. It is not the organizing principle. It isn't.
On the very day he was inaugurated, Joe Biden signed Executive Order 13985. That order makes equity mandatory across the federal government in all the agencies.
Yeah, but it's not the organizing principle. It's an equalizing one. It makes sure that when there are organizing principles, they are applied evenly.
And yet, strangely, neither Joe Biden nor anyone else in the administration has ever defined the word. So what is equity? Well, tonight, finally...
Seriously, is this just like white supremacist Sesame Street? Is that what this fucking show is?
We know what it is. Equity, it turns out, is racism.
Oh, all right. Well, that was easy. Shit. If it's that simple, why wasn't it there in a single Google search? Probably Alphabet suppressing it.
Simple as that. Equity is racism.
All right. Well, say it again, maybe, because I don't know that I grasped it.
And to be clear, we don't mean racism in the sense that ice cream and Shakespeare and math are all now supposedly racist.
Shit, I'm good at math. I just did Shakespeare, and I like ice cream. Guys, I might be equitable.
That Dr. Seuss is now considered an exalted cyclops in the Ku Klux Klan.
It's interesting that you know the actual leader, like the hierarchical structure of the Ku Klux Klan. That's interesting.
I'm not talking about the Ilhan Omar Atlantic magazine definition of racism, which, by the way, isn't actually language, but just another blunt political weapon. No.
Which is what your opening monologues are, actually.
We mean racism in the literal sense, in the way that Martin Luther King defined the term, which is the act of hurting some people and helping others purely on the basis of their respective races.
Is that how MLK quoted it? I mean, I've seen the I Have a Dream speech. Maybe I missed one of the other speeches where he said
bigotry, in other words, prejudice, hatred. That's what
equity is: bigotry, prejudice, and hatred.
Equity is. We know this thanks to Lori Lightfoot, the mayor of Chicago. Earlier today, Lightfoot released a 2-page manifesto defining equity. Quote, equity and inclusion are the North Stars of this administration, Lightfoot explained. Then she got specific about it. Quote, on the occasion of the 2-year anniversary of my inauguration as mayor of this great city, I will be exclusively providing one-on-one interviews with journalists of color. So in the name of equity, Lori Lightfoot is refusing to grant interviews to white people.
No. Were there any white people that asked for an interview that were denied? Because there is a proactive action here, which says she's going to be doing this. Is there anyone who asked for an interview that was denied because of their race?
Lightfoot took pains to explain she doesn't mean that personally. In fact, she conceded that some of the white reporters who cover City Hall in Chicago are talented and hardworking.
Well, that sounds racist to me.
But unfortunately, they are, Lightfoot said, quote, white nonetheless. So there it is, as plainly as anyone has ever said it out loud.
Well, because she's doing that about those interviews doesn't mean equity and inclusion as a strategy for an entire organization bleeds through that single decision. And certainly not that everyone else who uses that word has to use the narrow, like hair's breadth, razor thin definition of it that you give to tar and feather her with this idea.
White people are disqualified because they are white, not because of anything they have done or said or think. Lori Lightfoot doesn't care about that. She says so. Lightfoot is not interested in what these...
Can I see the quote? Can you play it? I mean, it says the racist mayor of Chicago. We've seen this. This graphic's been up for a couple seconds. I mean, you've quoted her, and I mean, it would be nice if you put it. I mean, because sometimes, like when Don Jr. was doing his thing, like I went to the whole page and I got the whole thing, and we looked through. I was able to do that, and I don't even have a staff. It's just me in my office with my lights on and my dazzling smile.
White people might be like as individuals, as people. She doesn't even care what kind of white they are. Their ancestors could be from Italy or Luxembourg or Finland or Spain.
Did she say that? Did she say it's just random white people?
They could be members of the British royal family. They could be penniless Romanian immigrants living in a box on the sidewalk on Michigan Avenue.
There are none. I'm just saying. Chicago's a better city than that. We don't have any penniless Romanian immigrants living in a box on Michigan Avenue. We just don't. There aren't any. Not on Michigan Avenue, anyways.
Rich or poor, it doesn't matter.
They're all on state.
To Lori Lightfoot. To Lori Lightfoot, all that matters is the fact they're white because all white people are the same.
Well, no. Not all white people are the same. The idea is that all black people in certain sectors have been denied the ability. Hold on one second. I'm moving something. Is that my alerts? There, that's the wrong one. Alert box. There it is. Yeah, I got to move this guy down here because it's driving me a little crazy because I don't want it to be over the. Okay.
They are entirely defined by the color of their skin. You can see how this makes.
Well, still, I don't get that on that anniversary, that one day. On that anniversary, that's when she's choosing to do this, but she's not denying everybody else. I mean, what time is whiteness okay on that day? Is it 6 o'clock? Should we call Lori Lightfoot's office?
Makes life a little easier for Lori Lightfoot. She knows who to hate just by looking at them.
And in that way, Tucker, I don't understand why you don't feel a certain kinship.
If someday the Chicago police round up the entire population of the city, Lori Lightfoot would have no trouble pulling the right ones out of line for punishment. By the way, in case you're wondering, yes, that was a Nazi reference. It was deserved. Lori Lightfoot is a monster.
She's a monster Nazi because on a particular day, she's going to give interviews to journalists of color. And then remember that day the Nazis said, all right, on one day, I'm only going to gas Nazis.
Any society that allows politicians to talk like this has a very ugly future ahead. Very ugly. But of course, no one said much at all about what Lori...
By the way, you're not going to make the case that white is a color?
Lori Lightfoot said in her manifesto. Even Chicago reporters, some of whom could no longer do their jobs purely because of how they were born, offered only tepid complaints.
Yeah, because it was only like an afternoon. These were one-on-one interviews, and she gets one-on-one interviews all the time the rest of the week. So they were just making a special day out of it, Kind of like during Pride Month going, this month, the first day of the month, I'm going to give interviews to LGBT reporters and papers at the beginning of Pride Month as a recognition of the community and Is that anti-straight? Is that what that would be? Can I get a room with a view of the park, 4th or 5th floor? Yes, Mark, and we're going to have to put in bulletproof windows because apparently Trump will be out front on Fifth Avenue firing a gun.
Listen to this person from NBC.
Another reporter called and said, hey, I'm hearing they're only talking to black or brown journalists. And I said, what? It just didn't even sound real. And so I reached out to the communications director, Kate Lefergy, and she texted me back and said, yeah, that's true. She said, no, white reporters have been in the room for the majority of the year, and it's time to hear from other people.
Okay, so for the majority of the year, so they're there all the time. So she just decided to give these one-on-one interviews on that day to people of color because she's been answering questions for them. And there's a lot of black reporters from smaller organizations, quite frankly, that just don't get pushed to the front line because GNBZ is sometimes, and the Trib and all the big organizations are there. And the little guys like CPT, we might not get that. Okay.
What? Can this be real?
By the way, keep in mind, this whole segment is about the definition of equity. Not, by the way, that somehow she says she's for equity, but we can prove she's not, which is how you usually cover what you would believe is a hypocritical politician. But Tucker Carlson is more interested in attacking the use of the word equity nationwide in the entirety of the English language. That's more important to him than attacking Lori Lightfoot for one day having interviews with black and brown reporters from different papers and organizations across and making sure that they get access to the mayor's office.
What you just heard was confusion, but not outrage. And yet there's nothing confusing about who Lori Lightfoot is.
Well, then is your brow furrowed? You seem confused.
Lori Lightfoot is a dangerous bigot.
Oh, good. All right. Well, again, can we just check these off? So equity is racism, and the black mayor of Chicago is a dangerous bigot. Good. Okay. We've come so far.
Lori Lightfoot is hurting other people because of their race.
Oh, my God. Diversity, equity, inclusion is working. Before, we could only have white bigots in office. Now we have a black bigot. Kumbaya, my lord. Come on, sing with me, Tuck. Kumbaya. He is singing, you can tell.
That's the crime. But of course, it's the one thing nobody wants to say out loud.
What's that? That your ex-head writer was writing anti-gay, anti-Semitic, anti-woman, and anti-black stuff on a series of bulletin boards under a fake name and views himself as a white supremacist, and you knew this, and that's why you hired him, but then you pretended you didn't know about that stuff when they made you let him go? Oh, something else. Sorry, I interrupted.
Here's the response from a reporter at the Chicago Tribune. Quote, I'm a Latino reporter whose interview request was granted for today. However, I asked the mayor's office to lift its condition on others, and when they said no, we respectfully canceled. Politicians don't get to choose who covers them.
Okay. Yeah, so this would be an example of someone, a Latino reporter going, that's not equity, and I won't be a part of it. By the way, they have an equity policy at the Trib. So.
End quote. Talk about
But I mean, that would make him a dangerous bigot. I mean, obviously that Latino reporter is a dangerous bigot.
Missing the point completely. And by the way, of course politicians can choose who they talk to.
Just not by race.
All of us have that right, thank God.
Yeah, I know. I've been in the same room with you twice, and I've chosen not to speak with you. It's freedom.
What politicians cannot do under any circumstances is an attack an entire group of citizens on the basis of their skin color.
He voted for Trump.
Again, to restate the obvious, that is racism. It is immoral. It is also illegal under countless state and federal laws. We are not supposed to allow behavior like that from our government. We are all equal in the eyes of the law. We are all citizens.
Right. And some people have, while they are equal, have not had equal access. This is about access. She's not sending the cops to people's houses that don't deserve it. She's not saying today only black and brown people can cross the street. This is her access interview. There's a limited number. And on this one day, she's choosing to give people priority that haven't been prioritized before because the message needs to get out to a bunch of places. If she said, today we're only talking to college newspapers, that's not a classist attack.
We've got an entire granite monument on the National Mall in Washington promising that we will never behave that way again. We will never allow it. But because we've embraced equity, we're not simply allowing it, we are encouraging it.
How is this equity? If there is any argument about what she's done, it's that she said she was for equity and she's acting in a non-equitable way. That you could make that argument, I suppose. Everybody's at the same starting line. Nobody gets extra. Everybody's just, that's what equity means, not equality. Equality means, is what she's talking about, is what he's accusing her of, is that old equality thought, which is, you know, you haven't gotten here and I'm going to assume it's because of your race, so I'm going to give you that leg up. That's what they used to clamor about. See what I mean? They're just flip-flopping this word.
Meanwhile, how's Chicago? The city of Chicago under Lori Lightfoot is crumbling. Murders last year jumped to 50%. Hundreds more dead, many of them young people, children, most of them.
By the way, every time you hear Chicago, when they talk about crime in Chicago, unless they mention the actual, like they, you know, near North Side or the Gold Coast or something like that, it all happens in Austin and the southwest part of Chicago. All of it. And it always has. It's, I mean, the South Side used to be the South Side. Then as they started to like build stuff and the Dan Ryan went down and they built out that area south of the city on the, you know, on the lakeshore, it became the southwest side, right? It's all blight, it's all ex projects, it's all concrete and lead paint, and it's terrible. And all of the shootings, when you hear all like, oh my God, Chicago, there were this many people shot and this kind of violence shot, unless they mention that it was on Michigan Avenue or on Rush Street or something like that happened, it all happened in that area, all of it. And it hasn't changed in decades. There is, I mean, don't get me started on lead paint, but the entire section, like whenever you hear Chicago, it's not Chicago. Chicago is gigantic, and the shootings aren't happening there. All of it is happening on the southwest side. Yes, it is largely gang killings and familial, you know, feuds. It's you know, in Austin, it's like the black version of the Hatfields and McCoys. People who have long-running grudges shooting at each other in large groups, and they have these regular rolling mass shootings. That's why it's a lot of random people get injured. It's why 90, you know, same thing is happening in New York in some areas, but it's why you have 90 people shot, 50 people die because only one person was the target, and they end up, you know, wounding a bunch of other people because it's a drive-by. That's it's the Chicago Southwest side. It's not Chicago in a whole. And they'll show the background. See these buildings? They're not full of murders. They're not. No matter who's in them, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, doesn't matter. And there's a lot of mixed people in Chicago. They're not talking about the northeast side. They're not talking about the Gold Coast. They're not talking about, you know, even up into Evanston. I mean, there's a large black community in Evanston. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the southwest side, always and every time. And then if there's these groups that grow, they've had like running groups of young people who come up from the southwest side and go downtown and wreak havoc, kind of Portland style, and it lasts for 2 days and then it stops. That happens. That's been happening in Chicago for decades. It's not Lori Lightfoot's fault. It's not any higher. It's just the reality. And someone saying, I don't know what I'm talking about. I'm from Chicago. I know what I'm talking about.
Black.
Show me a shooting that doesn't happen on the southwest side, and they will mention Rush Street, Michigan Avenue, North Side, whatever the area of it is. The rest of it is, you'll always hear when it's about the southwest side, you'll hear maybe the corner, but they'll always say a shooting in Chicago. They'll say Chicago as a whole.
Is that social justice? No, it's not. It's no one's definition of social justice. Not surprisingly, Lori Lightfoot doesn't want to talk about it. There are 50 members of the...
By the way, there's no such thing as social justice. It's a made-up phrase about cultural awareness. It has nothing to do with actual justice system or actual crime or any of that stuff. There's justice for everybody, and then social justice is an emotional back and forth. It has to do with how we interact with each other. It has nothing to do with laws being passed. The closest thing would be hate crime legislation, and even that I would just say is strictly justice.
City Council in Chicago. They're called aldermen. One of them, an alderman called Raymond Lopez, has repeatedly pressed Lori Lightfoot to explain what she's doing to the city. You should know that Raymond Lopez is not a right-winger. He's a Democrat. He represents the 15th Ward, which is overwhelmingly non-white, In some places, it's impoverished. But Raymond Lopez cares a lot about his constituents. So in January, he raised an obvious point with the mayor. Maybe crime is shooting up in Chicago because Chicago, as a sanctuary city, is not enforcing federal law.
So he thinks that Chicago's violence is up because Mexican criminals are who have sought safe harbor there aren't being broomed out by ICE. That's what he thinks?
How did Lori Lightfoot respond to this? She called him a racist.
Being an immigrant or a refugee is not a crime. Alderman Napolitano and Alderman Ray Lopez. I just have to say, shame on you. Spirited debate, which is at the heart of our democracy, is not the same as using racist tropes and xenophobic rhetoric to promote yourself on the backs of others and demonize them.
Calling for an elected official to follow federal law is now a racist trope.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most
It's great. It's fabulous. Okay, so again, here's equity versus equality again. And this is how, and by the way, did we hear anything in there, in that whole segment, that talked about how, equity versus equality, what the word means, that his definition of it entirely was based on the idea that she's saying that, the idea that on one day she only gave interviews with reporters of color on an anniversary day was indicative of her not believing in equity or misusing equity, and equity equals racism because of that one day of interviews. That was it. That's the whole thing. That whole segment boiled down to she's acting in a way he sees as racist because on that one day she chose to have interviews only from black and brown reporters, and that one of them turned her down because they didn't think that was right on this particular anniversary day, and they wanted, even though they had access, they chose to not do it because they viewed that as not equitable, not equal. And so instead of making a segment about how that's, she says she's for equity, but what does that even mean, right? Instead of that, now the word equity means the worst racist, because remember, she's a horrible bigot. Remember, she apparently, and then she tied it to this alderman thinking that because we're a sanctuary city, that there's people running all over the place.
One will
Is there anywhere in, shut up, Glenn. Is there anywhere in there where they did anything but try to take these actions and make the word equity bad?
And it really revolves around the word equity.
Right. So he's also gotten the memo. I got to tell you guys, every day when I look at videos and when we're looking at videos and stuff, and Can't Stop Lying can attest to this, it's like there's a memo that goes out and goes, this is the word that we're talking about. This is, and by the way, in your arguments about the areas, I said Austin and the Southwest side. So the downtown Chicago, Southwest side. Look at the gun memorial. That's what I'm talking about. All right. So Glenn Beck. So Glenn does this a bunch too. He's the one who actually kind of goes into we saw one of his woke videos where he was breaking down woke, and this was the whole story, right? This is, he was going to go into it. Tucker's just horse shit, and he's just tarring the word with, with bad news. That's what I'm saying. He actually tries to break it down. So we'll see if he actually does. But the word, it was woke last week. It's equity this week. Next week, it'll be inclusion. You know what I mean? What do they mean, inclusion?
Equity and equality are very different.
Mm-hmm. Now, understand, that's true, but they used to hate equality. These are the anti-affirmative action crowd, right? And the idea was they're trying to seek equality of what was it? You could have a quality of outcome was what they would always say Democrats were seeking, was equality of outcome.
Equality, root word being equal.
As opposed to equity, which root word being equus, meaning horse, which is why I like it because of my blue shirt. What is this Were you lactating and you burned a hole in your shirt? And why did you pull off your... Is this an IFB that he pulled out? That he only wears and he sticks it to his pocket? It's gross. It looks like a horseshoe crab with no shell.
All men are created equal. And it
doesn't say chicks, am I right?
focuses on the individual.
It's true. Glenn, you and I are created equal. I mean, look at the two of us. We're nearly the same age. We are created equal. One of us just has a little more willpower than the other.
Equity does not follow and focus on the individual.
No, that's about how much money your house is worth, right? Right, Glenn?
Equity focuses on the collective, the group.
Okay, I think I know where he's going with this, but we'll see.
That everyone will finish the same.
No, that's a quality of outcome. Equity is not a quality of outcome. Equity is everybody equal at the starting line.
So you have to compare yourself always to somebody else. What's the problem with Facebook and, well, I mean, this is a long list, but what's the first problem that we have with Facebook and social media?
That they allowed political ads to be bought with rubles during the 2016 election, and that without Twitter, there would be no Trump candidacy at all. Is he going to say that? He's going to say that, isn't he?
Is that you feel bad because you're constantly comparing yourself to somebody else. And you'll
Yeah, that's why I feel bad. Sure.
see, usually bogusly, you'll see, oh, well, they're really happy. They're really doing something, and I don't have that opportunity. And you feel bad about yourself. Comparing your position to anyone is A, irrelevant, and B, a recipe for disaster.
Bullshit. I mean, jealousy's a mistake, but comparing yourself to other people is how we aspire. I mean, most of our lives are lived between that, that person's really got it together. I should, see what they're doing right and see if I can replicate that in my own life. And there, but for the grace of God, go I. That most of us ride that line a lot.
That's equity, an equal outcome.
No, it isn't.
That's not what America is based on. Next hour, I'm going to show you how they are taking this equitable idea and destroying property rights. They are
Okay, so you're not going to be able to own a house which you would have equity in. This is going to be good.
destroying the individual. This cannot stand. And it comes from Marx, from each according to his ability, to each
Oh, good. Oh, good.
according to his needs.
From each according to his ability, to each according to his needs. Okay, so this is Marx believes that we should all get our, let's just say, the calories we need to maintain our weight or lose a little. Okay.
This is the problem. They say that we are unequal with one another.
What? I thought this problem was with the root of equality is equal.
And yeah, we are. We're born equal, meaning we have the same rights. But what we do with those rights and our learned responsibilities is up to us.
Right. And so what's the process that occurs when you're learning a responsibility? One of them is a good educational system or the nutrition, available to yourself so that you don't grow up with deficits, both in your cognitive abilities or your physical ability over time, where you grow up, with like Appalachian kids with Mountain Dew in their baby bottles where their teeth rot inside their gums. And so they can't actually chew food when they get old enough to where they would be eating solid food. And so they end up having smaller brains and they end up having, life defects, physical defects because of it over time. End up a blind banjo player on a porch because they were denied proper nutrition, proper access to education, and the government kind of helping them out, and telling them, hey, by the way, that water you're drinking out of that river, that comes from a coal mine in West Virginia, and they're not filtering the water down here because it goes into another state and they think it's not their problem. So we just came to let you know not to, drink that water. Then you have some sense of equity where this kid, once he gets enough food, he gets proper education. Then if he's an asshole, then his outcome is equal with everyone else if they're an asshole.
If you decide to go through school and skate, well, that's your choice.
If you don't have a school to go through at all, that's your ass.
Oh, you didn't get a good grade. Well, you didn't study. Oh, I know, but I have problems at home. Okay, that's cool. And, we can talk about that.
Yeah, let's talk about that. That's in the equity part. You have problems at home. Yeah, that aren't that kid's fault.
Get that grade. No, your problem is you don't get that grade because that grade means something. It's a way for us.
Yeah, equity is not giving people grades they didn't fucking earn. It's making sure that the schools that they go to have proper ventilation, don't have lead in the water. That's the equity part. That's what leaves life up to you.
Us as individuals to sort people and say, nope, this person is a performer. Now you can come and say, well, but I have special circumstances. That's cool.
Yeah, man, that's cool. I'm hip. Why does he keep saying, hey, bud, who is he picturing? I have to say, please tell me that this person, this fictional person that Glenn Beck is having this fucking conversation with is a young black dude. Like, you know what I mean? That's cool. You can say you have it rough at home. That's cool. Good Lord.
That's cool, but...
yeah, man, that's cool. Look, I'm hip. I'm grooving with you.
For instance, a surgeon. Yeah, I got all D's in surgery. And I know...
I got all D's in surgery. What the fuck? Mr. Beck, I want you to know that when we were looking in your ass, we found something, and it's very concerning. Now, you'll have to excuse me. I got a C- in ass.
I know you're looking for a new surgeon, but I had a really tough time because I have a sleeping disorder. Okay, all right.
Who the fuck is this person he's talking to? Because understand, this is what this asshole thinks. He thinks that funding schools based on something more than their, the property taxes local to them, and making sure that like kids in elementary school across this country, the United States of America, the greatest country in the world, and the only people who can become president are the people fucking born here, to citizens. I get, you can go all the way up to Congress if you're, as an anchor baby, I suppose. But the idea is that you can become president if you're born here. And yet this asshole wants to make sure that every child in this country only has access to the education nutritional system within the system the government provides, by the way, in an unequal fashion, because how are they going to learn their lesson if they don't struggle a little? You know what I mean? It's a valuable lesson kids need to learn. How are they going to know in the next life to not be born to poor people if we just let them get away with it?
Did you have that taken care of?
No, I might not. I'm going to doze off during your surgery. If you hear a grinding sound, it's probably the polyp remover.
Well, kind of.
What the fuck is this? What is this? This is, again, the name of this video is Equity versus Equality Explained How This Marxist Ideology Could Ruin Us. And apparently, Marxism is all about guys who got D's in surgery with sleeping disorders who might fall asleep with a tooth drill in your ass, getting through, and you don't have a choice but to take them. Please tell me that he goes, well, what are you going to do?
Okay, I need a surgeon that is the best. So
I'm going to Canada. Sorry.
Grade tells me you're not the best. And
yeah, and I always look at my surgeon's report card from school where they give D's. Does anybody think you don't flunk out of being a surgeon? You do have to.
And you're not filling me with a lot of belief that you are correcting that problem and you are the best. So sorry, I don't want an
Yeah, you do not get to poke around in my asshole grinding off polyps that I created through my magnificent diet and exercise regimen. You don't get to do any of that stuff because I only let people with like at least a B- root around in my rectum.
equal doctor. I want the best doctor.
Honest to God. The fuck are you talking about?
And all of us know this. All of us know this. I don't want an equal bridge. I want the best bridge.
What? What does that mean? Glenn, what the fuck, dude? Sorry, why'd you reach across and stomp the brake pedal? We're going to be late. I'm not crossing this bridge until I talk to the engineer. The best bridge. By the way, keep in mind, this asshole is against the infrastructure bill. What?
If I'm driving over a big span of a canyon, I don't want, well, all bridges, it's an equal outcome. No, no, it's not.
Yes, it is. Yes, in a country like America, the outcome on every bridge should be the fucking same. That you get to the other side. You don't get a beverage in a handy on the Golden Gate just because it's fancy schmancy. What the shit is this? What is he talking about? What is this? Only the best bridge. Yeah, Texans want the best electricity.
I want to make sure that one was built by the best people and it's the best steel, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, so you're not going to set foot in Trump Tower because it was made with Chinese steel and that's substandard and that's okay. Guess not.
What's happening right now?
Please give us another analogy. I only want the best hot dog. Please go somewhere. You haven't covered food yet. I only want the best Nilla wafers. Honest to God, I don't know what the fuck he's talking about.
We are now starting to. We've done college-ready math benchmark scores. Uh-huh. They are now abolishing this. The SAT now is being abolished. You don't have to have an SAT. You don't have to take those if you don't want to. And colleges are like, yeah, it's racist.
No, they're not. In what county is he talking about? I got a 780 math and a 740 verbal on my SATs. Oh, I'm sorry. We were going to let you in, but we didn't realize you took the SAT. What do you mean? Well, the SAT is racist, so we can't allow you in our school in the name of equity. Hey, Glenn, what's in the box?
It's really kind of a problem.
Yeah, it's kind of an imaginary problem.
University of California, the system there for the university, ending the use of the SAT because it's a racist test. 1,000 colleges have now said, we're eliminating it. Graduate schools are also eliminating the GRE entrance exam.
Uh-huh.
Virginia Department of Education getting rid of accelerated math courses for 11th.
It's just let the dum-dums in. That's what we're looking at. So if you didn't get a good SAT score, if your grades were fucking awesome and you were a killer student, but your SAT scores weren't great, you should have never gotten in. Is that the rule?
Grade because they improve equity.
Yeah, as the sole criteria for admission. Exactly, Jim.
In math.
Many universities across the country are opting to do away with the graduate record examination requirement, an assessment commonly required by graduate schools to gauge a student's academic eligibility for the programs. They're going to temporarily waive what? I'm sorry, what? Opting, as in an option, temporarily waived the what? COVID to equity. I see. So COVID, there's the equity word again. COVID, so because people couldn't, in the finishing of last year, they couldn't take like SAT prep scores and that kind of stuff. So they have a whole year full of people trying to get into school and they can't because their SAT scores were off. Yeah, temporarily. Jesus.
Mathematics and learning opportunities. I need the best.
Addressing these considerations while moving forward to improve equity and mathematics opportunities for all, okay, mathematics opportunities for all students. Mathematics opportunities for all students. Virginia moving to eliminate all accelerated math courses before 11th grade as part of an equity-focused plan to improve equity in mathematics. So they're, instead of having accelerated math for some students in 9th and 10th grade, they are going to up the quality of math teaching for every student there, because high school's not a meritocracy like college is.
Mathematician, not one who had the standards lowered for them. We're putting a man in space. I want to make sure the math is right.
What's the movie? I'm blitzing on the name of it right now, about the 4 black mathematicians who work for NASA. It's a beautiful film. I'm blitzing on the name right now. Wait, you think Glenn Beck's a fan?
And what happens? If it's not right, somebody dies. And then who gets the blame?
That's right. Some D-level surgeon and his asshole friend who's no good at math.
The system? The group?
Hidden Figures. Thank you, V. Gabriel. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks, guys. Yeah. How many want to bet that, like, that Glenn Beck, we own it, by the way. Summer and I bought it when it came out. It's a beautiful film. How many people want to bet that Glenn Beck watched Hidden Figures and turned it off halfway through because he was just mad?
Why didn't you have somebody else checking his math? You knew he didn't have the highest scores. Well,
all we had was a black lady who was doing all the calculations, and she wasn't even allowed to have that education back then. So she had to do it on her own. But, you know, she wouldn't have gotten good SAT scores because she wasn't allowed to actually go to those colleges. So she would have been denied the ability to go to Harvard and other schools, although she was already a NASA-level mathematician, you fucking asshole.
Okay,
cool, man. Please, by the way, guys, I know this is awful and racist as hell and gross and stupid, but don't allow this idiot to make you upset. He is fundamentally harmless.
Students who didn't sign the petition at the University of Columbia last spring, when medical students demanded they stop being graded by their professors, students who didn't sign the petition were warned they would be outed for being willing to sit in their own privilege at the expense of their black and brown peers.
The bias fallacy. It's the achievement gap, not systemic racism, that explains demographic disparities in the education and unemployment. Oh, it's a Heather McDonald article. You guys can go look up Heather McDonald. She's part of what they call the intellectual dark web. She's a right-wing talking person. She's been around a bunch. It's not surprising. This is exactly the kind of shit she would write. That any medical student from signing the anti-grading petition would be publicized as someone content to sit in their own privilege at the expense of their black and brown peers. Because the activist assholes on campus decided to use that as a method for pressuring people. And
are you telling me that doctors, medical students who are black or brown can't get a good grade?
That would sound racist.
And if that's true, then maybe I shouldn't go to a doctor. I should start judging people by the color of their skin, because you're telling me they're incapable of getting a good score.
See that, Columbia? It's not. Glenn wasn't racist. You made him racist. And as one of the few living human-sized Smurfs.
So are they incapable of being doctors too? Because I think that's really racist. Common sense, America. Common sense.
By the way, are you going to get to equity versus equality? Are you going to bring it back to this?
We have to begin to take a stand on some of these things, and a hard stand on them, or we're going to lose everything. We welcome back to the program Ami Horowitz, who
was nice enough to bring a rag and wipe all the blue jizz off of our lens.
a lot of people do man on the street stuff. I believe he is by far the best at this. He gets people to talk and engage, and nobody feels stupid in the end. And you
That's the only reason Glenn will have him on, because every time he has somebody on, he ends up feeling stupid.
gain some real understanding, and they're great to share with people, especially on the other side. Ami, welcome back.
Yeah, I love how much Glenn Beck shares with me. Don't you guys?
It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
So
Equity versus equality.
let's talk a little bit about the whole idea of there will be an America that we all recognize in 10 years.
Where does it even start? At the herp? Are we going to start with the herp? Are we going to start with the herp, or just the general pinkish hue?
Yeah, there will be. In 10 years, for sure. 100%. There's so much gas in the tank from over the past few decades of success that they'll carry us for a decade or two. Having said that, it's the next 10 years which will decide the fate for the next 100 years. We'll know the answer in 10 years. We'll know the direction the country is going in 10 years. Of that, I have no doubt.
Okay, so far we've said nothing.
In which direction we will go, it is up in the air and is up.
Sure, yeah. And that's never true in history.
To us to fight for us to win that ideological battle.
We know which direction the Biden administration is going to take us, and that is into a whole new kind of. I mean, they're talking about resetting and doing, getting rid of capitalism.
No, they're not. The fuck are you talking about? He just took a ride around a course in a new electric truck for the highest, like the most expensive, or I guess the highest earning truck in Ford's entire arsenal of cars. What? Who the fuck is talking? I mean, like, again, moon base asshole. Like this idea that the rest of us are on the goddamn planet, and all these people are like, there's like two little satellites floating around the earth, and people are like, destroy the Marxists, destroy the capitalists, and they're just like fighting over us, and the rest of us are all like, what the fuck, dude? Just don't blow up any of the trees and parks.
And into stakeholder capitalism, which is not capitalism.
Stakeholder capitalism.
It's an oligarchy. So we know
it's an oligarchy, right? Which we don't have anything even remotely close to that in his dream world. Which, by the way,
that they are on this path right now, and that, I mean, I think they've got a short time period to pull that off. They've got about 2 years, unless they completely destroyed the election process by then.
Yeah, one of the most insidious parts of the left is...
Let's hear it. I know I'm considered part of the left, so I'm always curious what part I'm supposed to be insidious about.
Their changing of the language, right?
Is Glenn fucking with this guy? Glenn, that's just mean. You can't bring a dude on and intentionally do this weird circle jerk of equity, equality, and then bring this guy on and go, the weird thing about the left is that they're always changing the meaning of words. Good Lord.
They're denuding of power from words. Like racism is a meaningless word now, right? And
is it?
And one of the things they've done, and if you've noticed it.
By the way, you ever hear people go, I don't care who you are, white, black, Asian, purple, I don't care. I've never. Okay.
That the word that the left used most often was equality, right?
Yep.
That was the buzzword.
Yep. And then you guys attacked the word equality. And then because you dirtied up the word equality, they started using a better descriptive word, equity. And let's see this guy. And by the way, you do recognize, remember what I said at the beginning of this about how equality was used and how they attacked it and all that stuff? This dude has just called Glenn Beck out in that single sentence on that very thing.
And what have they changed it to?
You are so right.
Equity.
Equity.
Equity. And what is...
And what did you say equality meant during all that time?
What does that mean?
What does it mean? Let's it obviously, ask Tucker Carlson, it means racism.
Very specific meaning to their version of the word.
It has a very specific meaning to their version of the word. It either has a specific meaning or it doesn't. What's these specific? These are the assholes who are always going, let's look at Webster's definition.
Equity, which means ownership. And what it means is we have to get equal outcomes, right? What was equality? Equal opportunity. That is.
No. Equality was equal opportunity initially, and then they painted it as what they want is equality of outcome, so they went to equity. Everybody is an American. Everybody has the same rights equally across it, and there's a certain level of protection and support as an American that you get. That's equity. We've all got skin in the game.
Is a disgusting notion to them now. Now they want equal outcome, and that's what equity gives them.
Well, how do they want to get rid of property rights if equity means ownership?
Well, I'd love to invite you back tomorrow because you understand
That was so good.
the mind of the left probably better than anybody else. And
Yeah, because I mean, please explain it to me, because I'm allegedly one of the leftist minds you're talking about, and I don't understand what the fuck you think I'm thinking.
I'd like to peer into that mind.
Ooh, it's
Ew.
dark
that
mind.
You can
It's
see.
a
It's a
dark
dark
mind.
place.
Adorable.